Amara noticed it during their first real argument, 3 months into dating Tobias. They were discussing wedding colors. She'd mentioned liking emerald green, and for just a split second, she saw something flicker across his face. Not disagreement, not disappointment. Disgust. It vanished so quickly she convinced herself she'd imagined it. But that night, alone in her apartment, she couldn't shake the image. The way his eyes had gone completely flat, like looking at a stranger wearing Tobias's face. 3 days earlier, Tobias had stood before the congregation during testimony service, his hand on her shoulder. I want to thank God for bringing this virtuous woman into my life. A real Proverbs 31, I'm blessed. The church erupted in applause. Her mother cried, his mother hugged her. So why did she feel more anxious after his public declarations than before them? When Amara first met Tobias at the young adults retreat, she thought God had finally answered her prayers with an exclamation point. He was leading worship, eyes closed, hands raised, voice breaking with what seemed like genuine passion. After service, he approached her. I noticed you during worship. You have a beautiful spirit. Not you're beautiful, your spirit is beautiful. It felt different, intentional, spiritual. By week 2, he was texting her scripture every morning. By week 4, he'd introduced her to his mother. By week 6, he'd posted her on Instagram. When you stop looking and start trusting God's timing. Everyone told her she was lucky. Her friends were envious. Her mother finally stopped asking when she'd settled down. But there were moments when his mask would slip. When she beat him at Bible trivia, he didn't speak to her for the rest of the evening. When she mentioned starting a blog, he said, "That's cute, babe, but you're not really a writer." Each time he'd apologize later, "I was just stressed, you're being too sensitive." And each time she believed him. The real unraveling began so gradually that Amara couldn't pinpoint when things changed. You laughed too loud, Tobias mentioned one Sunday. People were staring. She started monitoring her laughter, making it quieter, softer, more controlled. Then it was her weight. My future wife needs to take care of herself. You want to look good in your wedding dress, right? She joined a gym, started skipping meals, lost 15 pounds in 2 months. He never complimented the weight loss. He just stopped commenting, as if she'd simply met the baseline requirement. Then came her mind. That's an interesting perspective, he'd say in Bible study, but let me clarify what the passage actually means. That's not how theology works, Amara. Maybe you should listen more and talk less. She started staying quiet, started second-guessing every thought, started feeling stupid, even though she had a master's degree and he'd barely finished undergrad. Her friend Zara noticed. Why doesn't Tobias let you finish your sentences? He's just passionate about the topics, Amara defended. But Amara couldn't see it, or wouldn't, because admitting Zara was right meant admitting she'd chosen wrong, and she couldn't afford to start over. Not again, not at 32. Tobias began surgically removing people from her life. First, her best friend Zara. I don't trust her energy around us. She's jealous because she's still single. She wants to sabotage what we have. The friendship cooled. Zara eventually stopped trying. Then her church community. We should find a new church. This one is too liberal. They switched churches. He made sure she served in children's ministry while he led worship. Different service times, different social circles. Then her family. Your mother is too involved. She asks too many questions. It's inappropriate. Her calls home became shorter, less frequent. Within 6 months, Amara was isolated. Her world had shrunk to Tobias, his opinions, his approval, his disapproval. She didn't realize she was in a prison until the walls had already been built. It was a Thursday evening when Amara's world exploded. She'd left her laptop charger at Tobias's apartment and drove back to get it. As she approached his building, she saw him on the balcony, phone pressed to his ear, laughing freely. Something made her pause and listen. "Man, I'm telling you, it's the perfect setup," Tobias said. "She's so desperate to be married that she doesn't question anything. It's almost too easy." Amara's breath caught. "You feel anything for her, though?" Tobias was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was cold, clinical. "Honestly, she irritates me. The way she talks, the way she laughs, the way she needs constant reassurance. But she's useful. Her father has connections at the firm I'm trying to get into. Her family has money they'll eventually inherit. And she's so beaten down now, she'll do whatever I say. Why would I walk away from that?" "That's sociopathic, bro." It's strategic. I learned from my last relationship. Don't choose someone you're crazy about. Choose someone you can control. Passion fades. Power doesn't. When I'm ready to upgrade, I will. But for now, Amara serves her purpose. What if she finds out? Tobias laughed. She won't. She's too insecure, too afraid of being alone. I could tell her to her face that I don't love her, and she'd convince herself she misheard me. It's honestly kind of pathetic. The phone slipped from Amara's trembling hands, clattering on the concrete. Tobias went silent, looked down, their eyes met. For 3 seconds, neither moved. Then his expression transformed, shock melting into anger melting into something calculated. Amara, babe, how long have you been standing there? She couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. But she was already running. Amara drove home on autopilot, her mind fracturing. She stumbled into her apartment and collapsed on the bathroom floor, violent sobs tearing from her chest. She blocked his number and called Zara. You were right, her voice barely a whisper. About everything, you were right. Zara was at her apartment in 15 minutes. That night, surrounded by friends she'd lost touch with, Amara began to see the full picture. The isolation wasn't accidental, the criticism wasn't helpful, the control wasn't leadership. It was systematic destruction. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m., she fell to her knees, broken and desperate. God, how did I miss this? How did I ignore every warning you gave me? Then quietly, a whisper in her spirit. Daughter, I never left you. Even when you couldn't hear me, I was there. Every red flag you saw, that was me. Every uncomfortable feeling in your spirit, that was me. Every friend who warned you, I sent them. I've been fighting for you this whole time. God began opening her spiritual eyes. She saw moments she'd forgotten. The morning her car inexplicably wouldn't start when she was about to sign a lease to move in with Tobias, God protecting her. The time her mother, randomly, showed up during one of Tobias's rage episodes, and he had to pretend to be kind. The sermon about Jezebel manipulating through spiritual language. She'd felt convicted, but convinced herself it didn't apply. You were warning me all along, she whispered. I was, but you had to be ready to see it. Now let me heal you. God began speaking specific truths. You are not stupid for staying. You are human. He was a predator disguised as a prophet. You are not damaged. You are being refined. What the enemy meant for your destruction, I will use for your deliverance, and the deliverance of many others. The oppressive weight that had suffocated her for months began to lift, chains falling off, one by one. Her Bible fell open to Isaiah 61, The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes. That's me, she whispered. I'm the brokenhearted, the captive. Yes, and I am your deliverer, not Tobias, not any man, me. Peace, supernatural, unexplainable peace, flooded her being. What Amara didn't expect was what happened next. A week later, a woman named Chinai reached out via Instagram. I dated him 2 years ago. I need to tell you something. They met at a cafe. Chinai described a relationship identical to Amara's, the love bombing, the isolation, the systematic destruction. There are 4 of us that I know of, maybe more, Chinai said. He has a type strong, accomplished women with faith. He targets women who have been praying for a godly man. He becomes exactly what we need to hear, for a while. Why does he do this? A therapist I saw afterward explained it. He's a covert narcissist. He wants women he can control and eventually destroy. The religious angle is just his cover. Over the next month, Amara connected with 3 other women. Their stories were nearly identical. Love bomb, isolate, devalue, discard, repeat. Together, they brought everything to church leadership. Text messages, voice recordings, testimonies from 4 women spanning 5 years. 2 weeks later, Tobias was removed from all leadership positions. The church made a public statement about spiritual abuse and accountability. The exposure didn't erase the damage, but it stopped him from creating new victims. Therapy was hard, but God met her there. As she processed the trauma, Amara developed a prayer routine. Every morning, she'd speak God's truth. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. I am more than a conqueror. Some days she didn't believe the words, but she spoke them anyway. and slowly they began to sink deeper than the lies Tobias had planted. One difficult day, 3 months in, Amara was overwhelmed with shame. "You're stupid, you're pathetic, no one will want you now." She fell to her knees. "God, I can't do this, I can't silence these voices." Then she heard it, audibly, a voice that shook her apartment. "Those are not my words. I do not call my daughter damaged. I call her delivered. I do not call her pathetic. I call her powerful. I do not call her stupid. I call her strategic, because now she can recognize wolves in sheep's clothing." The presence of God filled her apartment so tangibly that she lay face down, weeping as God continued. "Amara, what Tobias broke, I am rebuilding, stronger than before. You are not plan B, you are not too broken for my use. You are being prepared for a ministry that will set captives free." From that day forward, the healing accelerated. 14 months later, Amara started a podcast called Toxic Faith, Recognizing Spiritual Abuse. One evening, a man named Chidi messaged, "Your podcast saved my sister from a dangerous situation. Thank you." They began corresponding. He was a trauma counselor, specializing in religious trauma. After 3 months, he asked to meet for coffee. "I'm attracted to you," Chidi said honestly, "but more than that, I respect your journey. I'm not here to rescue you or rush you. I'd like to get to know you, at whatever pace feels safe." Over the next 6 months, Chidi proved his words. He never pressured her, never criticized her pace, never made her feel broken. When she had a panic attack triggered by a worship song, Chidi sat with her in silence until she could breathe. When she pulled away afraid, he gave her space. "I'll be here when you're ready. No games, no manipulation, just honesty." When she finally said she wanted to try a real relationship, he took her hands. "Amara, I don't see you as damaged. I see you as a woman who survived something that would have destroyed others. That's warrior strength. I promise I'll never weaponize your vulnerabilities against you. I'll choose you every day, not for what you can do for me, but for who you are." For the first time in 2 years, Amara believed it. 3 years after leaving Tobias, Amara stood on stage at a women's conference before 3,000 women. "I was the woman he dated but hated," she began, "and for the longest time, I hated myself for not seeing it." She shared the warning signs: isolation, constant criticism disguised as helping you grow, weaponizing scripture, public adoration paired with private degradation. If you're constantly walking on eggshells, constantly wrong, constantly apologizing for things you can't name, that's not conviction, that's control, and you deserve better. A woman in the front raised her hand, crying, "But what if I've already wasted years? What if I'm too damaged?" Amara knelt in front of her. "You're not damaged, you're healing. The right person won't see your scars as flaws, they'll see them as proof you're a survivor." 2 years later, Amara married Chidi. During their vows, Amara said, "Chidi, I once dated a man who taught me what love is not. He showed me that charm without character is manipulation. You showed me what real love looks like. It's patient with my healing. It celebrates my strength instead of fearing it. You see my scars and call them beautiful. You see me, the real me, and you choose me." Chidi responded, "Amara, I don't choose you despite your past. I choose you because of how you fought through it. You transformed your pain into purpose. That's the kind of strength I want to spend my life honoring. I vow to never make you small so I can feel big. I vow to be the man who sees you, celebrates you, and protects you every single day." As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Amara caught sight of herself in a mirror. The woman staring back was radiant, free, whole. The woman Tobias had tried to destroy was gone forever. In her place stood a warrior who knew her worth, guarded her peace, and refused to settle for anything less than genuine, godly, life-giving love. Scripture references: "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Psalm 34:18. "He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds." Psalm 147:3. "You will know the truth and the truth will set you free." John 8:32. "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." Isaiah 54:17.